Oral route is the most common route and most cheapest route and most convenient and safest route. Drawback is it has most variable absorption and first pass metabolism. Drugs that cannot be given by oral route are enzymes which end by ase like asparaginase, and peptides which end by tide like octreotide, monoclonal antibody like MAB, abciximab, proteins with large molecular weight. If we see IV, only route with 100% bioavailability is IV. Most rapid effect, IV has most rapid effect and it is used in emergency situation. So large volumes can be given through IV. Drug with large molecular weight can also be given. So it has 100% bioavailability, can be used orally. Large volumes can be given, and drugs with large molecular weight can also be given. Drawbacks: there is increased risk of toxicity. Acute toxicity is more in when the drug is given IV. Drug in oily medium. If the drug is in oily medium, it causes hemolysis. What is the example of this intravenous route? Paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, we can use adenosine IV. For pulmonary edema, furosemide IV can be used. Hypertensive emergencies, for hypertensive emergencies, nicardipine IV can be used, whereas for status epilepticus we can use lorazepam. So these are the drugs which can be used in IV. Then the next thing is in IM. IM is also intramuscular. It is also a systemic route. Here in IM, drugs are given in oily medium and repository vehicles can be given. Irritants can be given, and this IM route will delay absorption, so it is long acting. Because it delays absorption, it is long acting. If you see the drawback, here the drug is taken in oily medium, so we see pain on the injection can occur. So here drug is in oily medium, so when you inject it, there is increased chances of pain on injection. Then the examples of IM injections are, you can use benzathine penicillin, adrenaline IM can be given. Similarly, monoclonal antibody can be given as IM. Then the next route is subcutaneous route. Subcutaneous route delays absorption. There is longer duration of action. Because of delaying absorption, it causes longer duration of action. In the subcutaneous route, self-administration is possible. If there are drawbacks are irritant. It is irritant, so you don't give it. Irritants cannot be given through this subcutaneous route, because if you give irritants through this route, then it causes pain and necrosis. Examples of subcutaneous route are, there is insulin, monoclonal antibodies, octreotide. So subcutaneous route examples are insulin, monoclonal antibody and octreotide are the examples of subcutaneous route. Then if you see rectal, in the rectal 50% have lesser first pass metabolism when compared to oral route. Then in the rectal they have unpleasant drugs cannot be given through rectal route. Sorry, you can give unpleasant drugs through rectal route. Unpleasant drugs can be given through rectal route. They have lesser first pass metabolism and unpleasant drugs can be given. And you have variable absorption. Then diazepam per rectal can be used for febrile seizures. Then if you see the next group of drug, that is rectal. Then after rectal, the next systemic drug is we have transdermal or intradermal. We have transdermal or intradermal. In transdermal route is a long acting and slow absorption, so it has no first pass metabolism. So that is an advantage, longer acting and slow absorption, no first pass metabolism. Here drawback is, through transdermal route only lipid soluble drugs can be given. Examples are, we have clonidine, nitroglycerin, scopolamine, fentanyl, nicotine can be given in transdermal routes. Clonidine, nitroglycerin, scopolamine, fentanyl and nicotine can be given in transdermal routes. Then if you see intradermal routes have slowest absorption by parenteral route. The drugs mostly which are given intradermally are tuberculin test and drug hypersensitivity reactions. Tuberculin test and drug hypersensitivity reaction we can give through intradermal route. Then what are the drugs which are given through local route? Local route include, first we have topical route. So in the topical route we have cutaneous drugs which are given by cutaneous route, which include steroids and antibiotics and immunosuppressants can be given by cutaneous route. Then we have mucosal, through the mucosal, that is in mucosal surfaces. For example, in cystitis you can give polymyxin B. For bladder cancer you can give anti-cancer drugs and BCG. And for vaginal candidiasis, fluconazole can be given through mucosal route. Then ocular route is also a topical route where you can give anti-glaucoma drugs, analgesics and antibiotics can be given. Then we have intrathecal route. Intrathecal route is lesser systemic toxicity and it cannot cross blood-brain barrier. So because it has lesser systemic toxicity and cannot cross blood-brain barrier, so the drugs which are used in intrathecal routes include, we have methotrexate, which is used for leukemia in intrathecal route. Intrathecally we can give aminoglycosides for CNS infection. Intrathecal baclofen can be given for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Intrathecal midazolam can be given, and intrathecal local anesthetics can be given. So these are given through intrathecal route. Then we have intraarterial route. Intraarterial route we can give steroids can be given through intraarterial route, which is in rheumatoid arthritis. That is intraarticular route. Intraarticular route we can give steroids, rheumatoid arthritis. Then we have intraarterial route. In intraarterial route, these has lesser side effects and less first pass metabolism. Through intraarterial route we can give anti-cancer drugs, that is mainly hepatocellular carcinoma, head and neck carcinoma. Anti-cancer drugs like hepatocellular carcinoma and head and neck carcinoma we can give intrathecal route. Then so if you see pharmacogenetics, differences between pharmacogenetics and pharmacogenomics. Pharmacogenetics is the effect of genes on the drugs. Pharmacogenetics are effect of genes on drug. So if one gene, if you see, if it is more powerful, if the gene is more powerful, there is increased receptors and increased enzymes. So these enzymes will break down the drug, and because of breakdown of the drug there is less drug in the systemic circulation, thus leading to drug failure. Then if the gene is less powerful, if it is less powerful, there are less receptors and less enzymes. So there are less enzymes for the degradation of the drug, so that leads to drug toxicity. Okay, so that is in pharmacogenomics. Then if you see, that is pharmacogenetics. Pharmacogenetics is effect of genes on the drug is pharmacogenetics. Then second, we also have one more terminology which is called as pharmacogenomics. In pharmacogenomics, it is based on the pharmacogenetics of individual, that is, it is particular to the individual. So this will, with the help of this pharmacogenomics, we can individualize the drug therapy. So this pharmacogenomics or pharmacogenetics will avoid the drug failure by increasing the dose of the drug, and it will avoid the drug toxicity by decreasing the dose of the drug. So if you see, first polymorphism, that is target polymorphism. So in this, the first type of polymorphism is VKORC1 gene polymorphism. What is VKOR1 gene polymorphism? So in this, warfarin will inhibit this. This is VKOR1 is vitamin K oxide reductase. Vitamin K oxide reductase. Now warfarin will inhibit this vitamin K oxide reductase. So once warfarin inhibits this, vitamin K cannot be converted to active form. So as a result, the vitamin K effect is, this will stop this will stop coagulation pathway, right? Now this VKORC gene can be of two types. If it is more powerful, if you see that this gene is more powerful, then it causes more activation of clotting factors, because it will get degraded very fast, right? And if it is less powerful, then it causes less activation of clotting factors, and as a result we will have variable effects that of the drug. So we will have to always monitor prothrombin time and international normalized ratio for warfarin. Then the next type of polymorphism is RYR gene polymorphism. So in this RYR gene polymorphism, this RYR is ryanodine gene. So this ryanodine gene, normally ryanodine gene will activate the ryanodine receptor and sarcoplasmic reticulum, and thus activates calcium efflux, leading to reuptake by calcium ATPase. But so this gene is mostly activated by drugs like halothane, lidocaine and succinylcholine. If this RYR gene is more powerful, there is increased calcium uptake a lot more. So there is increased utilization of ATP, leading to heat production, thus causing malignant hyperthermia. So that is RYR polymorphism. Then we have one more type of polymorphism, which is ACE polymorphism. In ACE polymorphism, it shows decrease in acetylcholine esterase inhibitors, decreased effect on acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. Then we have the next type of polymorphism, which is beta 2 receptor polymorphism. In beta 2 receptor polymorphism, it causes decreased effect of beta 2 agonist. In this, there is decreased beta 2 agonist is seen in beta 2 polymorphism. Then we have HMG-CoA reductase polymorphism. In this HMG-CoA reductase polymorphism, there is decreased effect on statins are seen on HMG-CoA reductase polymorphism. Then if we see, we will have to see enzyme polymorphism. So we have seen receptor polymorphism. Now we have to see the enzyme polymorphism. In enzyme polymorphism, we have CYP2C9 polymorphism. So this CYP2C9 polymorphism, this CYP2C9 will metabolize warfarin. Okay. Then we have CYP2C19 polymorphism. CYP2C9 will metabolize warfarin, whereas CYP2C19 that will metabolize the clopidogrel. Okay, that will metabolize the clopidogrel, that will activate clopidogrel. So if the gene is less powerful, there is decreased clopidogrel enzyme, thus increases the risk of MI. So there is increased risk of MI. So this clopidogrel, so for that the FDA has issued black box warning for this clopidogrel drug. So we should be very careful while using the clopidogrel. Then we have the next type of polymorphism, which is important, is CYP2D6 polymorphism. According to CYP2D6 polymorphism, so we have CYP2D9 polymorphism. In this CYP2D9 polymorphism, in this the drugs involved in this are the CYP2D6 polymorphism decreases the metabolism of tricyclic antidepressants, SSRIs and antipsychotics. It will also decrease the activation of tamoxifen. So once it decreases the metabolism of these drugs, it causes toxicity of these drugs, and it decreases the activation of tamoxifen. So thus it decreases endoxifen and thus inhibits estrogen receptor, causing failure of drug. So according to the Mayo guidelines, mandatory CYP2D6 genotyping should be done before prescribing the drug. Then if you see, the next group of drug is butyl cholinesterase polymorphism. So in this butyl cholinesterase polymorphism, we metabolize the succinylcholine. Okay, so this butyl cholinesterase gene is less powerful, then there is increased succinylcholine and it causes a side effect of apnea. Okay, then we have G6PD gene polymorphism. So in G6PD gene polymorphism, so there is decreased, this gene is less powerful, and because this gene is less powerful, if this gene is less powerful, then there is decreased G6PD and thus causes hemolysis. Examples of this G6PD polymorphism include, we have menadione, anti-malarial drugs like primaquine more than chloroquine, nalidixic acid, nitrofurantoin, isoniazid, sulfonamide, dapsone are G6PD polymorphism drugs. Then we have the next group of drugs which are included here are we have N-acetyl transferase polymorphism, that is NAT1 gene polymorphism. This N-acetyl transferase polymorphism is mainly for isoniazid. If the gene is more powerful, this causes hepatotoxicity because of increased metabolism and increased metabolites. If it is less powerful, then it increases isoniazid, thus leading to peripheral neuropathy. So this is about the gene polymorphisms. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. Thank you.